begin to change, right? Because what if she has a child, but she got two little young businesses going on and she's handling her business, and you know what I'm saying? And so now her she begins to present something a little different because you're linking in the mentality of the hustler. Maybe she made a mistake, whatever, it happens, you know. So when you say we differ, I'm not. When I met my first wife, Dove, she had 3 kids, right? I was never looking for a girl with 1 kid, not 1 kid, because I felt I was the gift still to this day, right? I never thought about it. I thought I was too good for it, and the liking, right? Can't no woman be with me and you got 3 kids, you know? I mean, that's how I really felt, you know, when I met her, right? It was only my father. It was only my father, Mel Taylor, when I said to him, yeah, she's been with this guy for like 6 years, 6, 7 years, right? And he said, oh, that sounds like a good woman to me. So now his lens began to alter my perspective of value, right? Because he seen something I did not see in Dove, which made me take a different look because I was just going to have an experience and that was it, right? Oh, she's a cute girl, whatever, got kids. I'm not interested. And I'll, you know, do a drive-by, sexual drive-by, okay, for y'all. And that's it.
Sexual drive-by.
But as far as me having her a part of my life, now it's beneath me, right? But it was my daddy that said something that made me take a second look at her. And I always teach in the remnant, for a man like me, all I've ever needed was a willing participant. I'm a man out the game, out the lifestyle, right? So I can't start throwing around judgments. I'm from the life, been in the gutters, coming up out of the gutters. My mother and father is from those experiences. I personally can't go throwing around judgments because where God himself brought me from, right? And because he brought me from those places, the lens upon how I look at people is different. Because if he could take me from where I came from, me from those gutters, how much more could he take anybody else? I'm going to look at somebody and not give them an opportunity. But when he gave me an opportunity, what did it take you? Okay, so what it took you to get where you are, give that to them and see if they can get there too. That's the situation I had with my wife, Dove, right? Because I wouldn't have extended that to her only because she had kids. But the fact that I came from that point of reference allowed me to look at her situation through the lens of my own situation and say, well, if it could happen for me, don't want to do it, but let me try. And when I tried, she became to be the greatest woman that I've ever had in my life and married almost 30 years. And like Marquette was saying, I have a new wife and a new 2-month-old son to me. And because she's so vast like me, she has developed, you know what I'm saying, the capacity in her greatness, right? To be able to not only look at my new wife as this is a new wife in the house, but this is my responsibility to make sure this works appropriately for what we're doing. She didn't separate herself from the situation. She said, as much as it's his responsibility, it's mine too. But that's that vastness that I'm talking about. And that's what she developed. Could she have developed that if she hadn't had her own experiences and come up out of environments like myself? Not the peep game, but mistakes. I don't know. I just know that that was her situation. And she became the greatest woman that I've ever had in my life by far. And that's just my experience. Yeah.
I want to highlight a couple of things that Mr. Taylor just spoke on. Number one, consulting his father. I think it's really important for all of us to know you could be a genius consulting a genius. You know, no one is too smart to take a double check or a triple check. That's number one. Sometimes when things are close to you, you cannot see them well. And another thing that I think a lot of folks misunderstand, and what Dre just described, is the dichotomy that I point out in terms of the saint and the sinner, which is to say we all strive to be saintly, though we may have engaged in things that are sinful, and both of those things exist within us. And it's in acknowledging the wholeness of who we are, which is to say the truth, that we can actually rise up. So I really appreciate that. And this is where I part with a lot of the ways that Jesus is portrayed, or that Christianity is taught, with a lack of balance. And also, there have been times that young men have come to me for advice, and I'm glad they asked me instead of asking their pastor, because I'm gonna keep it a bean with you. No, honestly, right? You might ask your pastor, like, "Hey, man, I got this real thick one, man. I'm thinking about go ahead. How do I get her taken down?" Your pastor might have told you, be abstinent. Like, I remember being 16, 18. That ain't gonna cut it. I'm gonna tell you to make sure you strap up and don't take it off. You dig? Like, don't trust her when she says she's on the pill. You might go to your pastor and say, "Hey, man, I done found a couple packs already, Rock. What should I do?" Your pastor might say, "Throw it in the garbage." I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna tell you to sell it as carefully as possible and never do it again, depending on your context, because it's hard to have morals, certain types of morals, on an empty stomach. And so I'm going to deal with you based on what's real and based on situations that I know and understand because I've been in them, and not based on like fantasy or pretend from a book that's 1,000 years old. Now, where I think the gentleman believes that you and I differ with regards to single mothers, and I think we're actually on the same page, but I think our rhetoric is different. And I think the reason our rhetoric is different, one aspect of it is time and experience. And then the third aspect of it is probably our ultimate aims. So number one, Dre just said, "Hey, this wasn't what I was looking for, but something was given to me. I acknowledged that it had value. Turns out I was right. We're 30 years into marriage. That's a W." Because you could find a woman with no kids and no background, and you end up married for 2 years, and next thing you know, you're paying alimony and child support for the rest of your life. What I'm telling you all is that single mothers are to not be produced and are to be avoided as a part of an overall system. And I'm speaking to an ideal with the acknowledgement that life happens. Now, why do we have the ideal? The ideal creates certain stigma to avoid certain behaviors, and it creates a driving force toward other behaviors. For example, if the woman is under the presumption that if she becomes a single mother, she'll never be able to get a man again in life and she'll die alone, there's further stigma to not become a single mother and to stick with your baby daddy, which is the best thing to do. And we all agree on that. Even men who are with single mothers agree on that. Now, we know that life happens. Men change up, women change up, circumstances change, people become widows, all sorts of things. I even know a nice young lady, very respectful and obedient, got with a guy, had a kid by him, got married, maybe not in that order. And then the dude ended up being a drug addict. What you gonna do? Tell her to stay with a drug addict? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, I say stay away from single mothers because I don't want there to be a safety net. I don't want them to feel like there's a safety net. And I also want every man to pursue his best opportunity. I also say deal with women from age 18 to 24. That's the best opportunity for fertility. That doesn't mean if you meet a great woman who's 32 that you should, oh no, the Saint and the Sinner said women 18 to 24. If she's 32 and she's a damn good woman, you'd be a fool to pass her up. No one passes on value. What I'm directing you toward is where there will likely be the most value, but you'd be a fool to be blind to apparent value in front of your face, which is to say, I'm not giving you rules, I'm giving you guidance. And we're giving you guidance as a part of an overall system where things are interworking, which is to say, if the woman is taught that single mothers have no safety net, she's going to try her best to hang in there in the relationship. Hanging in there in the relationship maintains the happy, healthy nuclear family, be it polygynous or monogamous. A happy, healthy family creates children who are well-adjusted and productive. Well-adjusted and productive children do not commit crimes. They do not have pain in them, so they mustn't share it out in the world. They have goodness within them, and they can share their gifts with the world. That creates a better, happier, safer, more prosperous society. It all works in a cycle, and it's not only the women that I have rules for, it's also the men as well. And so I teach to the ideal, I speak to the ideal, and we all try to raise up. And this is not to negate anyone else's human experience. And so I think that Dre and I actually have the same modus operandi, but I'm speaking to a particular ideal to establish a culture. I yield the floor.
One of my favorite books is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And there's a line there. He says that I'm not perfect, I'm just unpenetratable. So the more a person needs, the less powerful, the more powerful a person is. The more a person needs, the less powerful you are, the less complete you are. Let me say it again. The less a person needs, the more powerful a person is.